Thanks, Maury, and thank you all for your time. Kevin's given the overview and the introduction, and obviously speaks with a great deal of passion and experience. He's seen it over the journey in terms of his principalship. For me, my principalship's been fairly recent in terms of becoming the principal 3 years ago, but I've noticed in such a short period of time a lot of change, and I must say, working sort of 70 to 90-hour weeks over the journey, I'm not sure how much longer I can sustain it, and I've certainly seen evidence of the burnout factor in my principal colleagues. Just to give you a bit of an overview of my school, 830 students, SFO of approximately 0.56. It's not unusual for my Year 7 teachers to teach a range of kids in their classroom with the literacy and numeracy levels of a grade 2-3 level through to Year 8 or 9. So we obviously take in all of the kids in the town, apart from those that choose to go to the private system down the road. We're the only state secondary school in the town. We're located in Melbourne's outer west. For those of you that know Victoria, it's about halfway between Melbourne and Ballarat. We're awaiting funding for a rebuild program. We re-amalgamated back in 2009, and as yet we've received zero funds towards a rebuild. We've had to make temporary staff rooms. We thought they were going to be temporary staff offices in old storerooms that we've thrown skylights in and things like that, and old corridors that have been closed off, and to this point in time, they still remain as those temporary offices. We have a joint use facility, which is a 2-court leisure centre, a science centre, which is accessed by all schools in the state, and our enrolment is quite steady, but it is likely to grow. The staffing profile. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the specifics and how, from my experiences and the experiences of my principal colleagues, what we sort of hear around the traps and perhaps how some aim to deal with the circumstances that we have. I've got 100 staff, 76 teaching, 24 ES, 3 assistant principals and a science centre director who is also classified as an assistant principal. We get some separate funding for that, but that still goes into our SRP, our student resource package or global budget. I've got 7 leading teachers. 56% of my staff are at the expert teacher classification, and by 2015, 80% will be in that classification range based on current staffing profile. I'm pleased to say that 90% of my staff are in ongoing positions, and the 10% that are in contract positions are leave replacements. That said, we'll get into some of the pros and cons of what autonomy means for me. For every advantage, there is certainly a disadvantage. And this can vary from school to school, and it can also vary from different points in time within the same school, depending on the various situations that arise. Because of the high cost of expert teachers, there's really a limited ability to employ additional staff. So as your profile of experts goes up, your ability to throw a few extra teachers, maybe a few extra leaders into the mix to support, to run coaching programs, starts to diminish. Some schools will only ever look at graduate teachers. There is some ability to, as a school, for you to advertise graduate-only positions, a very limited number, but a lot of schools will advertise positions and then only shortlist graduate teachers. So when you're expert teachers, and I have a lot of expert teachers in the 35 plus category, so with a good 20, 30 years left of teaching, what ability do they have to transfer if they need to move closer to family members, or their partners' circumstances might take them to another area of the state? What ability do they have to to find employment other than perhaps someone that they know, or having that ability to move in that regard? The resources, the budget and resources available, it depends on the levels that you require within the school, but there are definitely there's definitely some impact there. Like I said, my school's waiting for a rebuild. How long can I keep throwing another coat of paint and putting up a few cracks and things like that in walls? I mean, at the end of the day, we need that money, and we're really just being given money to do the minor repairs. As Kevin said, it's in the SRP. Setting the context and level of support required. there are different levels of teacher training with your staff. So just because the classification means that people have been in the game for 10, 15 years, the needs arise that might be different. People wanted to retrain in a different area. We still need viable coaching programs, and if we haven't got the ability to appoint additional people in or provide for some time release, the model is set up such that, there's an expectation that obviously once you've got a whole group of expert teachers, you should be sitting sweet, everything should be fine. But we know that's not the reality. People need time to be released to mentor the next layer of people, and as I say, the different levels of teacher training mean that people still have needs and support, and the circumstances are getting more and more challenging. So as I've mentioned, the challenges with my school just based on some of the special needs and the ability ranges, as well as the social needs of these kids. Obviously, one of the pros, it's good being responsible to your, to the community needs, to your local needs, but that does come at a cost, or it does. There are always the flip side of it in terms of implementing government policy. It's not like the private sector at all, but yet we keep sort of being driven down this, autonomy sort of scale. But there are always the government policy sort of elements that constrict and constrain. Increasing levels of accountability. Some methods are questionable, and I know Kevin sort of outlined a few of those, and there's certainly a belief that school councils should play a larger role in this moving forward. The model that we got thrown at us recently was that, we think that, school councils, they certainly mean well, and perhaps if we were able to get some, some expertise allocated to different schools, that should be okay. That's probably what you need, and then they can make some decisions around your contract renewal and your appointment and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I've got a fantastic school council, no question about that. But I've still got mums and dads on the council that will always be looking after, protecting the interests of their kids. My school is actually 10 minutes down the road from Mowbray, the private college that has all of these lawyers and aspirant parents and families and whatnot, and that closed because of mismanagement. So again, I think their arguments are sort of interesting. There seems to be an ongoing reduction in the external resources and a growing expectation that schools will cover the deficit. SSO networks, so your speech pathologists, therapists and psychs and that kind of thing, principals now run those networks, not the region. So they've got to manage that budget, they've got to manage the staffing, they've got to quickly run random panels if someone's moving on, etc. They've got to appoint coordinators, but that comes at a cost because appointing a coordinator to assist them means, taking another body out from the schools. VETIS clusters, principals have to actually run those with the support of local learning and employment networks, which funding has been cut from, so I don't know how much longer they'll last, so we'll ride with the punches there. Video conferencing provision used to be run through the region. I received an email, I think Thursday of last week, so just at the end of term, as you've got this to sort of think about over your holidays. If you want video conferencing to continue, you need to, as a school, put in some money to fund the coordinator moving forward. PD. My techies are at a PD on Tuesday, which takes them out of the school for a day. Not a problem. Happy to support their development, but it's a compulsory PD run by the department with department software that we're expected to use. They must be there, but we've got to pay for them to be there. So that's wonderful as well. HR support, panels and reviews. Principals are being asked to perform that function moving forward at a greater level. And then as a panellist, you'll also be held accountable for if that was a dodgy review. I don't know how we're going to sort of work through that. And the Ultranet, the wonderful resource that it was geared up to be, Kevin and I spoke about it before, the email came out at I think 5 o'clock Friday to say that as of next year, if you want to continue to use the Ultranet, we've put it out to NEC and you'll be paying for it. So all of the resourcing, the curriculum days that have been held as compulsory, the lead user training that we've all done, we now have to pay for that as well. Yeah, I've mentioned that, okay. Considerations. If we had more time, I was going to perhaps do a bit of a think, pair, share with you on this one. What are the pros and cons of autonomy for your school, network and region? And could or should levels of autonomy exist in any system? Because I'd argue that some of the good things about autonomy can exist in any system, but that's there's high levels of satisfaction at times, high levels of frustration at other times, and all schools are different. So you definitely need the ability to make locally based decisions for your kids, your school community, your staffing needs and so on. But given that it is a system, we certainly need some more support there. Does autonomy improve performance? I think you can find examples and research to support either argument. It can, it might not. And what is the impact of doing more with less? As I mentioned, the dollars and the resources and the staffing flexibility, the need at times, if you've sort of got a specialist area, you might need to have people going in with their second or third method just to sort of get you through a particular period in time, which obviously decreases the effectiveness both for the students, but also decreases levels of satisfaction for the staff. Decreased access to PD, I've spoken about. Increased time of leaders supporting networks, which means as principals, we're out of the school more or we're carrying a larger load that's external to the classroom, and that has flow-on effects both on a personal level but also on our leaders and the people that we're leaving behind by being out and not doing what really is our core business. I've got concerns for new and aspirant leaders and PRINs. In the last 3 years, coming in with we've had the change of government basically at my halfway point in the principalship. There was a high level of support early on. The regions have been stripped to a large degree. I was lucky. I think I came in at the time where networks were there to support, mentoring, PD and those sorts of things. I worry now that if I'd come in at this point, unless I'm someone who can actually leave my school, and small school principals find it very hard to get out because they, who backfills them and the needs and so on. And some new PRINs are looking to improve the perception for themselves by being around and being available to everyone. But that comes at a cost, because if they're not getting out, they're not getting the support that they need. And when something goes wrong, you can no longer really call the regional office because they're threadbare in terms of staff. How do you look out for, how do they access support and teams? Who's looking out for them? And what is the impact on the school if they don't get that support? SRP, we've spoken about that to a large degree. It pays for everything: salaries, maintenance, utilities, PD, program budgets, all items and expenditure for the college. I'm running an almost $9 million budget. You do get the don't expect any deep bailouts. It's in the SRP. Yet if you have investments over a certain limit too, the government would like to retain those funds over that amount so that they can generate the interest, so you've never actually got a chance to move forward. And it also raises questions about the role of principal capabilities. You've got to be the financial manager, you've got to be facilities, OHS, strategic planning, just a little side thing like educational leadership, HR, performance management, massive levels of accountability, community engagement, network involvement and so on. And that was, I didn't even really refer to any notes on that one. In other words, I could add another page full. Conclusion, it's both good and bad, so be careful what you wish for. I think we've probably given you a fair snapshot. Hopefully we haven't scared you too much. And I think we're up to questions. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.